What is up, everybody? It is JT Sports. I am back to you guys with another video, and I'm here with my guy, dougliedowrong. He's going to be on to preview the Miami Dolphins training camp, going to be giving us players to watch, things to watch, potential position battles. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Got a lot to talk about, especially some Xavien Howard news broke today. It's a sad thing.
Yeah, man. So before we get into it, you guys make sure to subscribe to his channel, Dougly Do Wrong. It will be down in the pinned comment section down below. And let the people know where they can find you at and what you have coming up on the channel over the next couple of days and weeks.
You guys can find me if you need to find me anywhere, whether Twitter or whatever. It's just at Dougly Do Wrong. And next couple of weeks is going to be a lot of getting ready for training camp on the 27th, and then a lot of reporting from training camp, and then preseason in August. Can't wait for football to be back finally.
Yeah, man. We only got 2 more weeks, man. It's kind of a grind trying to find topics to talk about, and this is the time of the off season that I hate the most because everybody thinks their team's going to the Super Bowl. Everybody thinks their team's going to the playoffs. I had a Bengals fan come at me saying that I was sleeping on the Bengals. They were going to win 12 games this year and win the North. So it's wild.
Behind what offensive line?
Hey, hey, man, listen, there's nothing wrong with overly optimistic fans because at the end of the day, I think they know, but you always have a couple of fans out there, who they're dreamers.
Yeah.
Speaking of dreamers, you look at Xavien Howard. So I was arguing with some Dolphins fans on the Bleacher Report app. I said that there is nothing wrong if Xavien Howard wanted more money. I know Dolphins fans say, well, we just paid him. And I said, I understand that. But I was telling people that you guys look at things from a team perspective. You got to look at things from the player's perspective. These players don't have long-term careers like me and you do. We can do YouTube or go to our job every single day and do that for like 3-4 decades. But football, you can only do that for like 6-7 years at a really high level. And once you hit 30, you pretty much can't max out again. So for Xavien Howard, he wants to get as much money as possible before he turns 30. Then I had a Dolphins fan say, well, he got injured. And I said, all the reason why he wants as much money as possible. So, I mean, what do you think about the situation? Do you think he's going to end up making more than Byron Jones? Or do you guys think he's going to end up getting traded?
I think he's going to end up getting traded. I think what I'm hearing is happening is he wants a lot more, but then I'm also hearing it's not even 100% about the money. That also it's about the fact that because he came out, I think it was a few weeks ago or a few months ago that he came out, he was on someone's podcast talking about the disrespect that he felt when they signed Byron Jones and when they drafted Noah Igbenogany. And I think that is also kind of playing into his situation that he might just kind of be done with the Dolphins right now because of that. Because I don't see the Dolphins giving him more money. It's that whole yin and yang situation. Because I always talk about this on my channel that a lot of people want to say, "Well, he just signed a contract, and why would we give him more money?" But for a fact, if he sucked last year, people are going to be banging on the table to cut him, or he should take a pay cut because he didn't play up to his contract. But when he exceeds his contract, everyone wants to say, "Well, you signed it." It's like you can't have it one way or the other. But I don't think he's going to be a Dolphin for much longer. I think they'll probably try to get a trade done before training camp. And I'm hearing, the Saints, the Browns, maybe even the Eagles are teams to look out for.
Oh my goodness. With Denzel Ward? Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God.
Imagine they probably want that same thing the Dolphins had with two top corners on their team. But it's funny too, because you hear the Saints name, but the Saints don't have any money. So It's like they need to take on this huge contract that Xavien Howard has and is eventually going to want. So that's where teams like, the Browns and like the Eagles come in, where it'll probably be a trade for picks and a player just to clear up the cap space to take on Xavien Howard's contract.
So if you made that trade for the Browns, you would have to think that they're going to give up Greg Newsome, who they drafted in the first round of this past year's draft out of Northwestern in exchange, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to give something up to compensate for that.
or maybe greedy. Well, like if the Browns get Xavien Howard without having to give up, on Greg Newsome, like I think that's the ultimate finesse.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Especially, yeah, the Dolphins are going to demand at least a first and a player. That's like the bare minimum of what they're going to ask for.
I don't really understand like how you can feel disrespected by bring. Okay, so you signed Byron Jones, but now that just gives you another great player on the opposite end, and Noah Igbenogany, he could have came in and played slot. So I mean, like okay, like I'm trying to understand this because you follow the Dolphins way more than me because
Mm.
I'm focused on every team, but I'm just trying to understand like okay, like how can you be upset by bringing in another good corner because now you have two shutdown corners? Like does he think he can guard everybody?
I think he saw it as his replacement
Uh,
because the biggest thing with X was he never could stay healthy. He stayed healthy once. I think his second year he played a full season, but other than that, he was even the year he had 7 interceptions, he only played 11 games. So, a lot of people want to talk about, oh, the only reason he had 10 interceptions was because Byron Jones was on the opposite side. But he kind of already did it without anyone on the opposite side. So the biggest thing was he couldn't stay healthy. So a lot of it was essentially the Dolphins took a gamble by giving him such a front-loaded guaranteed contract, and they won that gamble by him staying healthy second year into that contract and getting 10 interceptions. Now he has no guaranteed money. So he doesn't like not having that, security. God forbid something did happen. So
uh,
we'll see how that all pans out. But it's not sounding good because he keeps sending out these cryptic like Instagram messages and stuff. So it's not sounding good.
Cryptid song lyrics is what there are most of the time. If the Dolphins really want to stick it to him, they should trade him to the Texans or the Eagles.
Right?
See what it is to be on a losing football team. And the
Exactly.
Texans need a corner for a while.
There you go. We'll get another first from him.
Exactly. So you look at off the line, that's another big area of concern. Now, I understand that the Dolphins had one of the youngest offensive lines in the NFL last year. Like you guys started like a bunch of young guys. You had Austin Jackson, Solomon Kinley, a couple of other guys on there. So I mean, like, how do you feel about the offensive line going into training camp? Was everybody's spot pretty much cemented, or are there going to be some more position battles?
There's going to be some position battles because, like you said, we had a lot of rookies last year: Austin Jackson, Solomon Kinley, Robert Hunt. On that starting offensive line, and this year, they draft Liam Eichenberg in the second round. Who at first I thought they were going to go running back. I thought they were going to go anywhere else, and they take Eichenberg. But when you watch his film, he did not give up a sack in 2 seasons. So he was just a tank at Notre Dame. So I'm thinking he's slotted to take that right tackle spot. I think Austin Jackson is going to continue playing left tackle. It's the middle where Jesse Davis, is he going to still the rumors are Jesse Davis is the front runner to be the left guard because they don't like that Solomon Kinley came in a little overweight. So that's a battle that's going on there. The center position with Skura and Dieter, we'll see how that goes. But it seems like it's leaning towards more of Skura, and then the right guard position seems like a lock at Robert Hunt. So it seems like the projected offensive line is Jackson, Davis, Skura, Hunt, and then Eichenberg. But we'll see because the Dolphins' front four adding in Jalen Phillips is really going to test this offensive line in camp.
Yeah. So like how on a scale of 1 through 5, how confident do you feel about the offensive line this season? Because me personally, like I'm not really all that confident. Like I think the Miami Dolphins are probably going to miss out on the playoffs, not by a big margin, but probably win 9 games. Maybe if they're able to win 10 again, you could still miss out on the playoffs with how competitive the conference is. So like, do you feel the same way I feel about the offensive line, or are you a little bit more optimistic and confident?
Um, Out of 5, I'd probably say like about a 2.5, 3. I'm kind of like in the middle. It's because I don't know what we have yet. And it's hard to say what we have without actually seeing them. That's why I love the fact that the preseason we actually get one this year, because now you really get a good idea of seeing where you're lacking or where your strengths are. I don't know, in OTAs and minicamp, you really don't get a good idea until the pads come on. So from what I'm seeing, Austin Jackson needs a little work. Jesse Davis is solid. Eichenberg is solid. But again, Eichenberg's a rookie. I don't know. Robert Hunt, solid at guard. And Skura, when he was healthy, was like a top 4 win percentage in run and block passing. So we'll see how it pans out. But, a lot of it, I think the offensive line is the biggest question mark on the Dolphins. And that is what's going to dictate, like you said, if they make the playoffs or not, is the offensive line.
You look at the running back position, is Myles Gaskins going to be the guy, or is he going to split carries? Because I plan on taking Myles Gaskins in my fantasy football leagues. Not a lot of people are talking about Myles Gaskins.
If I were you, I would, but I would wait probably to the 6th, 7th round, if that. Yes. He if he didn't get injured and if he wasn't on the COVID list and missed a few games, he was set to have over 1,000 all-purpose yards, which in fantasy talk is pretty good. But he's that type of back. He can be the leaning back, but the way the Dolphins work is if you're the hot hand, they're going to ride you, kind of like what the Patriots do.
Yeah.
And everyone stays away from Patriots running backs. And when it comes to fantasy, because 1 minute it's Burkhead, the next minute it's, Sony Michel, and it's like a back and forth. But when I look at the backfield, they bring in Malcolm Brown, who he's just going to be a tank. They get to the goal line, just going to punch it in with him, or it's a 3rd and 1. But then you have Savon Ahmed, who is, had over 100 yards against the Patriots. Last time the Dolphins had a 100-yard rusher was 2 years ago when Kalen Balazs did against the Vikings. So I think it's going to be a running back by committee unless the Dolphins pull off some type of trade to bring in a top-notch running back. Maybe the Saints. Maybe they send, Xavien Howard to the Saints.
I doubt they'll be giving Alvin Kamara, but we've seen they got to free up some cap space, and Latavius Murray was pretty productive. But I think if the Saints had to give some players that were off limits, they'll probably put a lock on him.
Yeah, definitely, because they just signed him. But a man can
dream. Maybe you can get Marcus Williams, because don't you guys have a lingering concern at safety?
Kind of, yeah.
With Marcus Williams playing on the tag, so you could, trade Xavien Howard, sign Marcus Williams. We can get to say we're definitely going to touch on safety, because I think safety is really interesting. So you look at wide receiver, your wide receivers weren't really all that great. When you come down to depth outside of Devontae Parker, you really pretty much had Preston Williams, who I thought was going to have a breakout season, but like always, can't stay healthy. You got Isaiah Ford, who played high school football in my hometown of Jacksonville for Trinity Christian. I think he's really good. I just feel like he just needs a little bit more opportunity. I was excited at the fact that he probably could get that this season, but then you guys bring in Will Fuller, and then you guys bring in Jalen Waddle. So I guess Isaiah Ford is just, scraps on the table pretty much.
Yeah, the wide receiver core is a drastic turnover from the way it was last year, because by the time that Tua started getting rolling, a lot of them were injured. Devontae Parker kept getting banged up. Like you said, Preston Williams, he was gone. Even Jakeem Grant, he was gone at some point. It was just like one by one, they all started to fall apart. And then you had your starting receivers being Mac Hollins, Lynn Bowden Jr., Malcolm Perry. It's like, who? But now they have that depth, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Will Fuller, Albert Wilson is coming back from opting out, and I'm hearing very, very good things about him in training camp, and he really fits what Tua likes to do when it comes to route running. And then you have, they bring in Robert Foster, who is a very tall, very fast wide receiver who did play some time with Tua in Alabama. And like I said, Will Fuller, it seems like they really focused on, all right, let's not have any more excuses for Tua, and let's put the weapons around them. And they really focused on that when it came to the wide receivers, and had some depth, because we can't depend on Parker and Preston Williams staying healthy this year
at all. Like, Preston Williams will let me down, man. I started him in 2 fantasy games. He put up a dud in one. Accidentally started him on accident. He actually scored a touchdown. I forgot who it was, but I was like, okay, I'm not starting you again. I had him and Darius Slayton. So, 2 sleepers down the drain. So thank God I stole Justin Jefferson when nobody was looking. So, it was rough. It was rough sledding. So you look at Tua, that is a guy who also had some rough. To be honest, I don't really think he had a rough rookie season. Like, I honestly feel
Thank
like
you.
the NFL is changing so much. Is that okay? A decade ago, we would look at Tua's rookie season, and if he was playing in 2009, 2008, probably 2000, anywhere before 2016, we would have been like, oh yeah, Tua had a solid rookie season. You get what I'm saying? You know, he managed the game. He had to do it for COVID offseason. But I think why Tua gets so much hate and criticism is because he was drafted before Justin Herbert. And we know what Justin Herbert did. And Justin Herbert had, you know, a worse coaching staff, a worse defense or whatnot. So, I mean, like, I still believe in Tua. I just feel like everybody develops at their own pace.
Yeah, 100%. And it's two different scenarios, two different circumstances when it comes to Tua and Herbert, because for their whole careers, it's going to be the three of them. It's going to be Burrow, Tua, and Herbert, and we're all going to compare the three of them to each other. But like you look at Justin Herbert, right? Fantastic rookie season, you know, offensive rookie of the year, set some, you know, passing yards, but he also threw 565 attempts. Like he was consistently playing from behind, so consistently throwing the ball. And when you're doing that, you know, the numbers start to add up, you know, and he took advantage of it wholeheartedly. Where you look at Tua, his attempts were like 292. He barely threw the ball because he was working on himself, and he was like, my defense is keeping me in these games. I'm not going to screw it up for them. So he wouldn't force passes. He wouldn't try to, you know, do things that were going to cost them the game. Whereas, you know, Herbert, on the other hand, was just like, we're losing by 14. I need to do something here. I'm just going to start slinging the rock. But a lot of people want to talk about Tua's downfall, you know, his faults in his game last year, which he had some. I'm for one to tell you, he had really good games against the Cardinals, against the Patriots. He had really good, and he had really bad games. The Broncos game, the Bills game, even some of the Raiders game. But if you want to compare them fairly, Justin Herbert played absolutely horrendous against the Patriots, the Bills, and the Dolphins, like absolutely horrendously. So they both have their faults, but Justin Herbert, you know, he got off the race by like a mile. He's a mile ahead of the other two quarterbacks, and they got to catch up.
Yeah, you look at Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had a really good rookie season. A lot of people really believe if Joe Burrow would have stayed healthy, he would have won it over Justin Herbert. I mean, it would have been close, but I just feel like when you had the season that Justin Herbert had, probably the greatest rookie season, not even the greatest rookie season statistically for a rookie quarterback, like you had no choice. But I mean, you look at Tua, and a lot of people say, well, Tua can't throw the football downfield. He's a game manager. And I was telling people, I said, you guys don't think the Miami Dolphins knew that when they drafted him? Like, obviously, when you're scouting these quarterbacks, you understand what they do well. You understand what they don't do well. Your job as a franchise is to draft a quarterback who best fits what you want to do from an offensive standpoint when it comes to schematics. And the last time I recall, there hasn't been a quarterback that's been drafted in the first round who has been a bust that went to an organization that had a great coaching staff. And that's why I keep telling people, like, as long as Brian Flores is the coach that Dolphins fans and people like me believe that he is, a ascending head coach that probably can end up being a top 10 coach, then Tua shouldn't be a bust, because great head coaches are able to win with the players they have around them. And if Tua isn't that great, then maybe it has to be a strike against this coaching staff, because I haven't really seen a quarterback be a bust with a great coaching staff that was drafted in the first.
Yeah, I agree 100%, because you like you said, if you got the coaching staff, everything else kind of falls into place. Because look at Bill Belichick, you know, he's consistently had the revolving door at certain players, and he's consistently won. Brian Flores took a team that everyone thought was tanking, won 5 games, and then last year won 10 games, almost made the playoffs. So yeah, he just needs to do it again.
Yeah, so before we move on to the defense, you guys make sure to check out my guy, dougliedowrong, covering the Miami Dolphins. Make sure that you guys subscribe to his channel. And also, you guys can check him out in the pinned comment section down below. And I appreciate you for coming on.
Definitely, man. I'm having a blast.
Oh, yeah, definitely. This conversation is going really well. And a lot of people like always asking like, do you have any notes, JT? And I'm like, nah, like I just have these questions on the top of my head, like I just remember what I'm interested in because like when I'm giving my analysis, like it's good to have guys like you who really, really pay attention to the Dolphins because sometimes I miss things and sometimes I want to make sure I'm not tripping on certain things. And the fact that you're not as confident off the line as I am, gives me a solid belief for all the hate I'm about to get when I drop my Dolphins record prediction. You already know how it is, man. You criticize the team, people like, oh no, man, the offensive line is going to improve this year, man. You're tripping, man. Like Giants fans, oh my goodness, Giants fans hate my guts, man, because I had them going like 6-11. I was like, I mean, you had the same offensive line from last season. It wasn't that good. Then you try to say, here's what blows me. So people always try to gas these players up, but like if they have a weakness, they're trying to blame it on somebody like Evan Ingram. Apparently was responsible for 6 out of 11 of Daniel Jones' interceptions last year, but they voted him into the Pro Bowl. And then they say the offensive line wasn't good last year because Daniel Jones held the football too long. Well, the offensive line is the problem. Well, they'll blame it on the offensive line. They'll say, well, Daniel Jones wasn't good because of the offensive line, but then they'll say the offensive line wasn't good because Daniel Jones was holding the football too long. Like,
which one is it?
Exactly. So like you look at the Dolphins defense. Okay, I like your defensive line. I like Christopher Wilkins a lot. Like, how are you feeling about this defensive line heading into training camp? Are you any concerned about it, or are you pretty sold on the guys you have right now who are projected to be starters?
I'm very excited. They need to do a little bit better at the run stopping. And be more consistent at getting after the quarterback because the Dolphins last year blitzed 47% of the snaps, which is a little too much in my mind. When it comes to blitzing, I'd like that front 4 or front 3 to consistently get after the quarterback because there was a lot of times where the quarterback had too long in the backfield to let the plays develop. But with the addition of Jalen Phillips, I think that's going to severely help the pass rush. I didn't expect the Dolphins to get him at 18. I thought it was going to be Najee. I thought it was going to be ETN. I thought it was going to be a running back. And when they pulled the trigger on Phillips, I was surprised and was very happy about it. He's seems like a Jason Taylor type. Then having him with Agba, Christian Wilkins, Zyler, Andrew Van Ginkel, who made some big plays for us last year. That front 4 is going to be very important in getting after the quarterback. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited for it.
It's funny because when the whole entire mock draft season, you know how mock draft season is, everybody releases their 25 mock drafts, all these crazy trades and whatnot. And my final mock draft, when I had you guys taking a running back for the whole entire mock draft season per se, my last mock draft had you guys taking Jalen Phillips. And I was telling people for the whole entire process that Jalen Phillips was the best pass rusher coming out of this draft class. I liked Dick Quiddy Pay and all those other guys, but everybody was raw. And everybody kept saying Gregory Rousseau was the best pass rusher out of Miami. And I said, no, he wasn't. This comes from a diehard Miami Hurricanes fan. Gregory Rousseau's 2019 campaign was like, he kind of benefited from the other guys that you had there. And on top of that, you also had some sacks that, it's just kind of cleaned up. The quarterback just happened to be right there. You look at Jalen Phillips, this was a guy who wasn't that much of a developmental project. This was a guy who was the most polished, not just the most polished, but he also has great body size, length, and athleticism. And on top of that, he had the production to match. Now, the only thing, if you're a Dolphins fan, is, okay, like, can you stay healthy? Because you did have the injuries back in UCLA, which kind of made him retire for a brief stint, came back, found his passion for football in Miami, played well. So, I mean, like, how good do you think Jalen Phillips is going to be this year? Because I think he can end up being a Josh Allen or Max Crosby or even a Chase Young, having an immediate impact where he has like 8-9 sacks.
I would love that. I don't want to jinx it, but a lot of Dolphin fans in my comment section are saying that defensive rookie of the year, which I'll take that all day, every day. I'd like to, because Emmanuel Ogbah had 9 sacks. Emmanuel Ogbah had consistent pressure on the quarterback. If we can get 2 guys to do that, then all of a sudden, if we do lose X, the secondary doesn't need to be on top of their game as much, because when you have a front four that doesn't get pressure on the quarterback consistently, you have your corners who are now left on an island trying to cover a wide receiver for 4 or 5 seconds, who after a while you can't cover them forever. So I think getting more pressure can help, especially if Noah is all of a sudden in the starting corner opposite of Byron Jones.
Yeah, I really want to talk about corner, but I want to keep it inside the trenches. So before we get to what everybody wants to hear, I want to talk about the linebackers. So it's like you lost Calvin Noy, like you paid the guy so much money, and then you get rid of him, and like it's just another Patriots finesse. Like I don't know if you realize this, but the Patriots are the biggest scammers in the NFL. So they'll have players that would do really good and they won't pay them. They'll let another team overpay for them in free agency. They're stinking up with their new team. And then the Patriots are getting them back the following year or two on a reduced price for pretty much nothing. Like it's the biggest scam in the game. Like it's not fair.
With the linebacking core, it's interesting because they draft and they trade for McKinney, who is a thumper. He's a really good linebacker. He's not as good in the pass protection, but he is very good at the run stopping. Then you have the outside linebackers that we have, and like I said, Andrew Van Ginkel, Vince Beagle. Technically, Jalen Phillips is now listed as an outside linebacker. He's rocking number 15. So I find that interesting. But the Dolphins do run a 3-4. So he's going to be – he did that at UCLA. He had that, the combination of standing up and putting his hand in the dirt. Then, we re-signed Jerome Baker. The whole Kyle Van Noy situation, the Dolphins overpaid him. And the Dolphins know they overpaid him. The production that they gave him, he was injured. He was banged up for most of the year. It didn't match how much money he was going to get. So that's why the Dolphins let him go. But the linebacker core, I'm excited to see it work, but that's another one that kind of worries me because I need to see how they do covering tight ends, especially you're playing the Patriots week 1, who has, they went out and got 2 really good tight ends. It might be Jerome Baker and Eric Rowe covering these tight ends. And I know you're chomping at the bit to get to safety. So I'll wait to talk about that.
Yeah. So I mean, like I'm good to see that I'm not the only one who has the same concerns about the Dolphins because, like I do all these research on 32 teams. You have fans that come at you all kinds of directions, say, you don't know what the F you're talking about. You're an idiot. You don't know nothing about the Dolphins. So I'm glad to see that we have similar concerns about the offensive line and linebacker because, like, I had the same opinion about linebacker. I really questioned how good this unit is in pass coverage. And then you look at cornerback. Okay, so Xavien Howard, if he's gone, we know Byron Jones is probably going to be the number 1 guy. But then you have Noah Igbenogany. Now, when I watched a couple of Miami Dolphins games I didn't really see that much of him. Like, was he playing slot or like was he like not playing at all?
With Noah, it came down to when he had such a bad rap, and I feel so bad for the guy. The game against Buffalo, I think it was 2 snaps in, Byron Jones gets injured. So now all of a sudden, here comes Noah, and he has to cover Stephon Diggs for a whole game. So Stephon Diggs goes off, has 140 yards, just torches the rookie. Second game of the season, no off season, no training camp, just torches him. Then the game after that, we have the Jaguars. He actually does better against the Jaguars. And then he has to go against Seattle, and he gave up some big plays before the half. He gave up a touchdown. So he got a bad rap. And then once Byron Jones came back, Noah kind of was just a backup, still learning how to do his thing. And then Xavien Howard got ejected against the Bengals. Noah came in again, did solid. So, you remember the bad games, the Seattle game and the Bills game, but against the Jaguars, when he came in against the Bengals, he did solid. So but it was always Byron X and Nick Needham were the starting 3 corners, and Noah was kind of the backup to them.
Yeah, like when I was looking at Noah Igbenogany, like I was really caught off guard that the Dolphins, wasted that pick on him because I was like, okay, like I think Trayvon Diggs Jalen Johnson could have been better selections, which they were selected in the second round. And we know how pretty much all of the cornerbacks who were drafted after round one were better than the corners drafted in round one. Now, normally, I tell people this. Offensive linemen and cornerbacks are immediate impact positions. You don't have to wait long to see if a guy can play or if he can't play. And most of the time when you draft a cornerback in the first round, if they don't do good their rookie season, you pretty much know what they are. Like, I think a good scenario of this is Artie Burns, coming from a Steelers fan, drafted him in the first round out of Miami. He stunk his rookie season. That pretty much was it. I think the only corner I can remember who didn't have a great rookie season that bounced back was D. Milliner for the Jets. And, he was injury prone. So, Noah Igbenogany is not the only guy who had a rough rookie year. That's what I was trying to tell Dolphins fans. I said Jeff Okudah also, as a matter of fact, Jeff Okudah had it way worse than Noah Igbenogany, and probably because, he was starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I'm giving the cornerbacks from last year who were drafted in the first round a break because of COVID and things like that. And it is really tough having to go out there and, try to guard Stephon Diggs because in his defense, Stephon Diggs made everybody look like, like they didn't belong to be starting corners pretty much. You look at Byron Jones. Here's my thing about Byron Jones. Byron Jones is a solid corner. But I feel like for me to consider you an elite corner, you have to come up with a couple of takeaways. And the thing about Byron Jones is that, he's not somebody who lights up the stat sheet from a corner. Like, he doesn't have the high pass deflection numbers. He doesn't have the high interception numbers, but he's a guy who quarterbacks don't really target all that often. So, how are you feeling about Byron Jones' play from last year? Like, did he play up to the level of his contract, or do you question his ability to be a true number one?
I think he did play up to his contract. I think, a lot of people, and for the right reason, you see the interceptions. You look at a corner, how many interceptions did he get? How many times did he pick the ball off? But exactly like you said, he was shutting down that one side. You have the Raiders game with a horrendous non-call PI that ended up being a long touchdown, which was just so bad. But he always shut down his receiver, which then the focus went, all right, well, let's focus on the other side. And then you had Xavien Howard where you're going to throw it. And if he's in the vicinity, he's going to pick it off. Just like when Patrick Mahomes tried to just, screw it one-on-one. He got Tyreek Hill versus Xavien Howard. I'm going to give it to him. And he just grabs that ball out of the air. Like it just works out perfectly. Byron's going to shut his side down, and then they're going to test X, and X is a ball hawking corner. So he's just going to get it and snatch it out of the air. And then they caught on that, and they started picking on the slot and picking on Nick Needham, which didn't end up being well. But yeah. So
yeah,
I think Byron played up to his contract.
Yeah, I tell people this. I was like, me personally, I prefer a corner who doesn't get a lot of interceptions, but completely shuts down his sides. He doesn't allow no touchdowns. He doesn't allow a lot of completions because Stephon Gilmore, when he won Defensive Player of the Year somehow 2019, I felt like it was really overrated. He had 6 interceptions, but he gave up 5 or 6 touchdowns that year. So I thought it was really overrated. So I remember Dolphins fans, when you first signed Byron Jones, there were a lot of people saying that you overpaid for him, and they were looking at his interception numbers from Dallas. And I was like, listen, Byron Jones doesn't have the greatest stats, but if you actually watch the games, he's not being targeted all that much. Yeah. So, me personally, I want to see Noah Igbenogany start at slot. When he was coming out of Auburn, I thought that's primarily what he was. He was somebody who can be a really high-level slot corner. I didn't really think he would be able to transition as a true outside cornerback in the NFL all that well. And that's what I thought you guys' plans was for him. And it could be because, it sounds like your slot cornerback wasn't all that great.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like what I'm hearing out of, minicamp and OTAs he is, learning to do that because it's completely different playing boundary because boundary, you have help, and that's the sideline, right? Whether you're on the left or the right, you can force them. You have that sideline to your benefit. moving from that to slot is so much different, so much harder because you don't have that help on your left or your right. So, I'm hearing that they are slowly moving him towards, playing that slot position because, him and Nick Needham are competing with Coleman and the other corners that the Dolphins brought in because just like tight ends, the Dolphins like to bring in thousands of cornerbacks. But then there's the safety position and there's a certain player in the safety position that's going to, I'm hearing is going to be all over the place, but I'll wait for us to get to that.
Yeah, one. I mean, we can get to safety, man. So like, I mean, like, who the hell's playing safety for the Dolphins this year, man? Like,
so Jevon Holland, who the Dolphins took with the 36th overall pick, the number one, the first safety taken in the draft, is just. I'm so excited to see this man play on the field. I'm hearing he's going to be all over the field. I'm hearing he's going to be at the line of scrimmage. He's going to be in the back. They're going to do with him what they wanted to do with Minkah Fitzpatrick. They're going to have him all over the field and being all around the ball because he showed at Oregon how good he is. Maurice Jones-Drew raved about him and said that how good he's going to be. And then you have Eric Rowe, who had 2 bad games against 2 of the best tight ends in the NFL in Waller and Travis Kelce. Other than that, he was shutting down tight ends and he was actually having a pretty good year. So that combination of Jevon Holland and Eric Rowe, a pretty good safety combination. They got rid of Bobby McCain, who was solid. Bobby McCain was solid moving.
Dolphins fans hated that move. Like, I guess Bobby McCain is extremely loved by like Dolphins fans because there were a lot of Dolphins fans that were like, they didn't really like the move for real. They was like, he was a great leader. I guess he must be somebody who does a lot for the community because Dolphins fans, like, they understood it, but like, it was one of them players like, you understand, but you hate to see it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when they released him, I made the video and that's the whole comment section was like, why are you getting rid of him? He's so, and he did a lot. He did a lot for the community, and he wasn't bad at the safety position. But Jevon Holland is just
yeah, man. Like so good, I didn't want to bring up Jevon Holland. I wanted to see what you had to say about him. I look at Jevon Holland like he reminds me a lot of Jabril Peppers, and Jabril Peppers had that season where it kind of took him. He had a really hard rookie year because you was really trying to figure out how to utilize this guy. But you look at Jevon Holland. I think he can end up being what Jeremy Chin was with the Carolina Panthers last year. Jeremy Chin was a guy who seemingly came out of nowhere, and he was making all these plays, pretty much scoring more points on defense than what the offense was doing at times. And this guy's just a playmaker all around. And I feel like you look at Jevon Holland, he definitely has that skill set that if you want to move him down, he can play a little bit of linebacker because he's a really good tackler. He's really good in coverage. Like, he's like a really great athlete as well. Like, I just see a lot of Jeremy Chin and a lot of Jabril Peppers qualities in Jevon Holland, which is why I'm so excited to see him play because I think he could be a sleeper for Defensive Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah, definitely. And it sucks that, the secondary doesn't get a lot of love when it comes to those type of awards because I think that Xavien Howard should have won Defensive Player of the Year. Like, how rare is it for a corner to get 10 interceptions? But, it's always the front guys. It's always the guys who get sacks and make the most noise, get those plays. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Jevon Holland has one of those seasons where he is in the talks for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and I always have to tell you Dolphins fans this because I got to say thank you. Thank you for giving us Minkah Fitzpatrick. Like, he's been the absolute stuff for us, man. Like, you talk about the guy who should have been in those talks, man. Like, he should also be in those talks as well. It's always TJ Watt getting snubbed, but dang, like, Minkah Fitzpatrick came around and literally turned around the secondary. Like, I remember Rogentowski, when him and Brady were last playing for New England, we had the lead. Mike Hilton dropped a wide open interception by Tom Brady and literally threw it to Gronk on 5 straight plays, and they were right in zone. Minkah Fitzpatrick came, and I haven't seen that ever since. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And a lot of you Dolphins fans, like when you traded Minkah Fitzpatrick and got that first round pick, the Steelers were 0-4. So I saw a lot of you guys who were saying, oh, yeah, we're going to have a top 5, top 10 draft pick. Steelers end up, salvaging a season.
I don't know how. I don't like it.
Mike Tomlin.
It's the Steelers way. It's the like We
Mike
traded you
Tomlin.
guys, Mika. You gave us a first. I think we gave you like a fourth. Like it was like a nice little combination thing. And I'm thinking to myself, there goes Roethlisberger. He's going down, and then like your backup went down. So then like your
Drafted
third
Ricky
strings in,
Sanchez,
and I'm like,
Doug Hodges.
I thought what happened with the Dolphins this year with the Texans, where we got the third overall pick, I was like, let's go. We're gonna have 2 top 10 picks, and then all of a sudden they're winning, and I'm like, what? I'm like,
I've been trying to tell people like Mike Tomlin over the last 2 seasons has been the best head coach in the NFL. Like the guy continues to exceed expectations, and that's why I'm so high on Brian Flores. Like a lot of people judge a head coach by win loss, what they do in the postseason, and I definitely factor that in. But me, I'm a guy who I want to see who can do more with less. You look at, I want to see what head coaches overachieve, what head coaches can win without their starting quarterback, because that's truly how you judge how great a head coaching is, because the main part of being a coach is being able to make adjustments. That's really important. You look at Brian Flores, he made adjustments last year, made adjustments and made some really questionable calls, like choosing to take out Tua and bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick. It didn't work out against Denver, but it worked out against Las Vegas. To remind you, that probably wasn't a very easy decision because, you want your young quarterback to be in those situations. You want to see how he can handle those situations. And we still don't know how Tua can handle a situation like that. But at the same time, you're competing for a playoff spot. So, I mean, Brian Flores, the guy deserves a little bit more respect, because I've been seeing everybody drop their coaching rankings and their QB rankings, and I just see Brian Flores ranked like 18, 19. I feel like he should at least be in the top 15. I wouldn't consider him top 10 yet. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't either, but I mean,
no.
I feel like he's incredibly underrated in terms of the job that he's done with the Dolphins.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, people look at the win losses, people look at the playoff berths, Mike Tomlin took the Steelers, his rookie year as a head coach, all the way, and it's so funny too, because I talked about this in one of my videos, I think last year or something. For the Dolphins, it was between Joe Philbin and Mike Tomlin, and the Dolphins went with Joe Philbin, and then Mike Tomlin ended up with the Steelers. And if I can go back in time, I would yell in Stephen Ross's ear, "You're making the wrong decision." But yeah, it all, that's what it all comes down to. What can you do with little? And when I started having great confidence in Brian Flores was in 2019. Everyone's like, oh, they're tanking. He wins 5 games against good teams. The Eagles, the Colts, they weren't that good at that back then, but the Eagles and the Patriots, and the Dolphins put the
coffin in the Patriots. They didn't get that first round bye.
And then they went to Tennessee, and Tennessee put the nail in it, and it was done. So, and then look at last year. Dolphins had one of the youngest teams in the NFL last year, and he had them, winning 10 games. I got some really going into 2020. Everyone looked at the Dolphins schedule. We're like, oh, they're not going to beat the 49ers. They're not going to beat the Chargers. They're not going to beat the Cardinals. And then and all of a sudden, the Dolphins whomped on the 49ers. Yeah, they were banged up, but it's like they were winning games that people were like, oh, they're not going to win this one. They're not going to win that one. And they started winning. It's going to be interesting. It's going to, it hits his 3rd year. He now has his guys. He was building his team his way. It's now his 3rd year. It has his guys with his cap space, all these draft picks. Put up or shut up now.
Yeah, one thing that I really admire a lot about Brian Flores is you think about all of these failed Bill Belichick assistants and things like that, and they all failed because they tried too much. They tried too hard to be like Bill Belichick. And it was like a former Patriots linebacker that came out and said that the Patriots way isn't fun. They only get 5-10 minutes for a lunch break and things like that. You look at Brian Flores, he's like the complete opposite. Like he's not ruling the Miami Dolphins with a silver fist saying, yeah, like you better fear me of things like that. Like it sounds like Dolphins players actually enjoy playing for Brian Flores, and he does show hard love, but he does coach. He gives them a lot of coaching. Like when you guys were supposed to be the worst team in NFL history, there were a lot of reports about how Dolphins players in the locker room anonymously felt like the coaching staff wasn't putting them in proper situations to actually win games, that they were throwing in the towel on purpose.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because you start to see him make changes to help with certain situations, because like you were saying, a lot of players felt that way. Even some ex-players I remember were coming out in 2019 saying, how can you do this to these players? And but then when the season came to an end, everyone's like, Brian Flores could be coach of the year.
Yeah,
So
literally, like people. Yes, and it was really strong. Like I was like, bro, the dude didn't make it. I understand, but there still has to be, you still have to, make it to the playoffs at least. Because like I was arguing for Mike Tomlin. I was like, I don't care if we didn't make it to the playoffs. The dude won 8 games with an undrafted rookie free agent quarterback. Like I was going hard for both Brian Flores and Mike Tomlin. Yeah, man. It's just crazy, man. Like what Brian Flores has done in Miami has been nothing but exceptional. What he's done with that franchise, like you just got to give him a lot of praise and a lot of credit for what he's done.
Yeah, definitely. And if he can continue to get better every year, just continue to build a winning franchise, then all of a sudden, we get the Dolphins of the 90s and the 80s and the 70s again, because for 3 decades, the Dolphins were consistently winning. It wasn't until like after 2003, 2004. It's like the past, 16 years. It's been a lot of mediocre football.
Yeah. And you're in a really tough division now, because last year when you guys won 10 games, you played the Patriots team that was down. They're back up. You got the Buffalo Bills, who everybody believes they are a legitimate Super Bowl contender, myself included. So it's going to be really interesting seeing how you guys fare this season in that division. So before we let you go, I want to say I appreciate you for coming on. Very fun discussion about the Miami Dolphins. Let the people know where they can find you at and what you have coming up on the channel over the next couple of weeks heading into the season.
dougliedowrong. You want to find me anywhere, literally Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, dougliedowrong. Got a lot of breaking down some top stories going into training camp for the next week. I'm going to be talking about players, all that stuff. And then 27th starts training camp. I'll be doing all my daily training camp videos. It's going to be real fun.
Yeah, man, I can't wait for training camp, man. Like we're only 2 weeks away. So I appreciate you for coming on. You guys make sure to check out my guy, dougliedowrong. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Link to it is down in the pinned comment section down below. Also, make sure that you guys subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure that you guys like and share the video. And thanks for watching.